the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, nor does he stand in the path of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers, but his delight is in the Torah of Yahweh, but his delight is in the Torah of Yahweh, and on his ways he meditates day and night. He meditates day and night. He'll be like a tree firmly planted by streams of living water, which yield a seed in its season, and its leaf does not wither, and in all he does he prospers, 'cause his delight is in the Torah of Yahweh, but his delight is in the Torah of Yahweh, and on his ways he meditates day and night. He meditates day and night, that the wicked are not so,
And Shabbat Shalom, everybody, and welcome to the Virtual House Church. I am your host, Rob Skiba, and I am excited to be joined once again by my friend, John Hall from Now You See TV. Hey, John, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you? I'm not going to say clean, dry, and tact, which I just said. How are
I
you
was getting
doing?
so used to it, man. That's
Yeah. I think I used that term like 5 times this week doing stuff. It's like, it looks clean, dry, and intact to me.
all right. There you go. Yeah, doing good, man. Excited to get started with this week's Torah portion. What I meant to do today, and I totally forgot to do it, was count all the chapters that we have in the Old Testament from all the books in the Bible. And the reason I was going to do that is because I was thinking doing 2 chapters a night is going to take us a long time to get through the rest of the Bible. And so I'm thinking, well, maybe if we just tackle, I mean, most of us, I don't know about you, but I would say, or anybody else out there, but I spent the better part of my life in the New Testament. And probably most Christians would say the same. They spent the vast majority of their life as New Testament Bible believing Christians in the New Testament. And probably not a lot of people out there have spent a whole lot of time going through the Old Testament. So my thought was that for this Torah cycle, not only doing the commentaries that we've been doing on the Torah cycle, reading for each week, but to try to finish the entire Old Testament this year in this Torah cycle. So what I need to do then is, and maybe somebody can do that out there, because we'll be doing all kinds of stuff here. Anybody listening right now, if you can just kind of go online or just look at how many chapters there are to every book in the Old Testament and divide it by 50. And that'll tell us how many chapters we need to do, because there's 52 weeks in a year typically. We just did 2 weeks so far on the Virtual House Church in this new cycle. So we have 50 counting tonight. So I'm thinking if somebody can do the math on that while we're doing our show right now, just divide out all the chapters of all the books in that comprise the entire Old Testament, divide it by 50 and tell us how many chapters we need to do a night. And maybe we can get started tonight with however many we need to do in order to accomplish that goal.
I was thinking I was going to use a rolling walker by the time we got done with it anyways.
Well, yeah, 2 chapters a week probably was going to take us a while.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But last week was interesting out of Joshua. We were getting into just the phenomenal scenery that must have been. And then, I'm reading the Torah portion this week, and we get right into the 5 King War. It's highly another visual I would love to see on screen.
Oh, for sure.
Done right.
Yeah, for sure. Let's just go ahead. Let me do a screen share just so everybody's aware of what we're going to be commenting on. If you go to virtualhousechurch.com and scroll down on the left-hand menu, we're doing week number 3, Genesis week 3. And that covers Genesis 12, 1 through 17:27. Ooh, Genesis 12, that's the interesting passage. I'll go ahead and click on that. That everybody takes out of context, actually. I'll tell you why they take it out of context. Right here, Genesis chapter 12. Now the Lord said unto Abram, get thee, Abram, out of thy country, Abram, and from thy Abram's country, kindred, and from thy Abram's father's house, unto a land that I will show thee, Abram, and I will make of thee, Abram, a great nation, and I will bless thee, Abram, and make thy Abram name great, and thou, Abram, shalt be a blessing, and I will bless them that bless thee, Abram, and curse him that curseth thee, Abram, and in thee, Abram, shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Do you see anything in there about the nation of Israel other than the fact that he's going to make a great nation out of thee, Abram? No, but everybody in their talking parrot will say, oh, bless Israel and you'll be blessed, curse Israel and you'll be cursed. And they'll use Genesis 12:3 to justify that statement. Now, I will say that later on in the Torah, it does talk about blessing and cursing the nation of Israel. But that begs the question of what is the nation of Israel in today's context?
So, a lot of, I've heard it many times over the years, cursing and blessing Israel, and they use exactly this verse, to make the point. So, I mean, when you read that, it's like Abram,
Abram.
Yeah.
Abram. You know, they say in real estate, location, 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 right? Well, in scripture reading, it's context, context, context.
Right. But, you know, I'm wondering what Abram's hearing as he's hearing, you know, the Father talk to him.
Where's your face there, buddy?
Oh, I always do that to you.
I'm talking.
There you go. Here's my face.
There we go.
I'm sitting there reading the screen while you're reading it. I'm going, okay.
I'm looking at this logo talking to me.
You know, I sometimes sit back now, you know, that I read Abram, and I think, how did Abraham hear the Father telling him this? How did he take it? You know.
Well, you know, I like to paraphrase it because, you know, he's told to leave his father's house, his family, leave everything he's ever known behind, and he's not even given a GPS setting where to go. You know, he's like, just walk. I'll stop you when you get there. Where am I going? Just go, dude. And so basically the paraphrase would be, hey, listen, Abram, I got your back, bro. You know, anybody that blesses you, I'm going to bless them. Anybody that comes against you, man, they're going to have to deal with me. So you don't worry, bro. I got your back. You know, that's obviously a serious paraphrase, but that's what's being said right there.
So what is the passage that they're using later on in the scriptures that says those who bless Israel and curse Israel? So how is that supposed to be taken? Or can they come back on us and say, well, here it is?
Technically they could, but that's the scripture they'll usually point to. They'll point to Genesis 12:3. And the address escapes me. I want to say it's either in Numbers or in Deuteronomy. We do have the case where, you know, Balaam is hired to try to curse Israel, and every time he tried to curse Israel, he ended up blessing Israel.
Right.
You know, and so it may be in the context of that whole thing right there, because he says, you know, how can I curse what God has blessed? You know, I can't do it. So that might be one place, and I believe there might be another place in Deuteronomy where people would go that route. But again, that begs the question of who/what is Israel in the 21st century. And my contention is it's not that plot of land over there with the name tag on it under the Star of Remphan that was formed in 1948 by the Rothschilds and the Freemasons and the Zionists and the United Nations. You know, Michael, is it Michael Bennett or John? I forget. Let me just look real quick. Well, it's in one of... it's called The Redeemed. The book is called The Redeemed. And he's got a great quote in his book. Oh, man, where is it here? Let me see if I can. Maybe that's in Coming Out of Babylon. It might be in the... Let me do a screen share here, so people know what I'm looking at.
Okay.
Those are all videos. Oh, yes. It's Todd D. Bennett. These are all fantastic books. I mean, this guy's a prolific writer. I need to get him on my radio show. He's got like 15 books or something like that. It's called the Walk in the Light series. I don't have it on here, but he's got a book called The Redeemed, and he's got some great insight into this issue. And, you know, again, paraphrasing, he basically says, you know, that ungodly organization, the United Nations, has no right to declare the kingdom of Yahuwah. You know, only he does. Right. And as we read Jeremiah 23 and Jeremiah 30 and Jeremiah 31 and Ezekiel 37, the entire book of Hosea, Isaiah 65, 66, over and over and over again, we see that when the nation of Israel is regathered, the regathering, it is by Yahuwah himself. Now, you know, everybody's like, oh, Donald Trump, he's the new Cyrus. And I understand how God can use a pagan king like Cyrus to do the things that he did and allow Israel to rebuild and all that yada yada jazz. However, Amos 3:7 says God doesn't do anything except he tells his prophets first that he's going to do it. And Cyrus was even prophesied by name to do it, that a guy named Cyrus is going to do this. I don't know of any prophecy that says Donald Trump is Cyrus. You know, however, you know, not to get too political on this show here, I don't really want the show to go that route, but, you know, I am like thrilled that Hitler didn't get in. I am just jazzed out of my mind, excited about it. But I think it's way too premature to say that Donald Trump is our Cyrus. Now, could he be? Could he give us a window of time? Is this a Second Chronicles 7:14? Have we been given a bit of a window of peace? Maybe where we can rebuild and where we can maybe rejuvenate the economy and get back on our feet. And if he does accomplish all that, then we might consider that he is possibly playing the role of a Cyrus type character, enabling the people of God to rebuild and things like that. But I think it's way too soon to be making that kind of a statement. And all these guys out there claiming to prophesy, I do still believe that the gifts of the Spirit are in action today. I want to clarify that. I do believe the gifts of the Spirit are still in functioning. They're functioning in the body today. And I do believe the gift of prophecy is one of the gifts that can still be functioning. However, I would be really careful about going around saying, "Thus saith the Lord," because a whole lot of these people who are doing that are consistently wrong and never repent of it. Biblically speaking, they would have been stoned to death. Now, we're not going to go out and stone anybody, but that's a pretty serious thing. If you're going to go around saying, "Thus saith the Lord," you better make sure that he said it. So, for me, I'm like, look, could be, maybe, should be. I don't know. I'm going to be watching and seeing. That's the attitude I'm taking. But you're not going to hear me say, "Thus saith the Lord," Donald Trump is the new Cyrus or whatever. And I would caution everybody out there who believes that from going that route. Because, this guy regularly contributed to the Clintons. They're like buddy, up until,
and cousins.
Yeah. They're related also. So I'm going to remain very cautious and suspicious while at the same time celebrating because it could have been a lot worse in my opinion.
I think that's a wise, cautious stance to take because we don't know what he's going to do. He's not even taken the oath of office yet. We've got 10 weeks before he does so. Mm-hmm. And then he's got to make good on his promises. And we've seen president after president make promises.
They never make good on it.
And then it's excuse after excuse and then tied up in Congress or whatever legislation branch it gets into. Right. What I do find interesting, John and I did a show earlier in the week. And we were covering it as it was the election night, as it was going on. And something just popped in my head at the beginning of the night. I'm just watching to see what Yahweh already knows. Mm-hmm. And then, he wins. And we're up till 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning doing this, me and him. And then the very next day, we start to see the riots break out. I'm just watching to see what Yahweh it already knows.
Yeah.
And, I've seen the Cyrus videos that are out there and the commentary on those things. And I go right to Deuteronomy 13.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just go straight to it and I rely on that. And I'm just watching to see if it, okay, he won the election. Okay. Good deal. But is he going to do? Because I listened to your radio show earlier in the week and you were talking about, Cyrus poured money into it. Mm-hmm. He poured money into Israel to build Jerusalem back up. And, I've yet to see this as far as Trump goes.
Well, somebody could argue that he poured his own money into his own campaign, which fair enough. I can appreciate that. Because the borrower is slave to the lender.
Well, campaigning is different than pouring it back into the country.
Right. He poured it into getting himself into the highest office in the country. Now what? I'm not going to sit here and expect that he's going to pay off the nation's debt or anything like that, which would be amazing if he did. But I don't see that happening. But anyway, I really don't want to waste all our time doing political commentary because that's outside of my kingdom that I serve. The kingdom that I care about is the kingdom of Torah. The Torah is the constitution of the kingdom. You mentioned that the Genesis 14 war is part of our Torah reading. And just sort of as an aside, have you seen Hacksaw Ridge yet?
No, I have not seen it yet.
Wow.
Good?
Oh, man.
Okay.
No, just word of caution to, I got to be careful. Every time I say something, you endorse this and blah, 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 whatever. Look, it is a very graphic movie. It's, at least as graphic as Saving Private Ryan. So if you remember the opening sequence of, when storming the beach there and Saving Private Ryan, I mean, it's like that. And I posted a whole bunch of videos on my Facebook page this week. If people want to check them out, Desmond Doss is a real life character. In fact, the beginning of the movie, it doesn't start off with based on a true story. It starts off with a true story. Because they tried to stay as absolutely true to what really happened throughout the movie. And as proof of that, I found I don't know if you ever remember that really old black and white TV show, This Was Your Life. Desmond Doss was a Sabbath-keeping Seventh-day Adventist, hardcore believer in Yeshua, Jesus, and very sticking to his guns, so to speak, to his religious beliefs. Wouldn't work or fight on a Sabbath, wouldn't touch a weapon. The guy refused to carry a weapon. Was a conscientious objector, so he never fired a shot. And went into the worst horrific hell of battle. In fact, the battle there at Hacksaw Ridge is recorded as the bloodiest campaign in the Pacific, part of the war. I mean, and this guy, a young, skinny guy, carried 75 people off of this ridge when the whole rest of his company, they all retreated because the Japanese were, just holding that ground. Had retreated, and he refused to go. And there's like a big cliff that they had like a netting kind of ladder type thing. It was like probably 100 feet high. Where they would come in, the Americans came in, went up that netting to hell at the top, and then everybody evacuated, went back down it. But he stayed up there, and the "This Was Your Life" episode, which I posted on my Facebook page, if people are interested in checking out. They tell many of the stories that we saw in the movie. But man, dude, I mean, you want to talk about a powerful, extremely graphic, but extremely powerful story of faith and love in the midst of hell. That was it. And this guy, a Sabbath-keeping vegetarian, refusing to carry a weapon, genuine hero. Wow.
Well, that was coming out. I saw some of the trailers to it, and I started reading some of the commentary on it. That they gave him a lot of flack.
Oh, they did.
Through I don't know. I don't know if he went through boot camp in that movie or not, but his peers gave him a lot of grief over that.
Yeah, the first half of the movie is about, as Mel Gibson said, it's like introducing Norman Rockwell. Have you ever seen the old Norman Rockwell paintings of Americana? The innocence that he depicts in his paintings is what's depicted in the first half of the movie. But it's just like taking Norman Rockwell and throwing him into the pit of hell, for the second half of the movie. But it just showing how this guy, stayed true to his convictions. It really also showed, and Mel Gibson said, he goes, I intentionally showed the horror of war, so we realized, how horrible it is and why we shouldn't be doing it, and he also showed PTSD, what it does. Desmond's father was in World War I, and so in the first half they show how he's dealing with the shell shock, they used to call it before it was called PTSD, and how it affected his life and how it affected him as a father. Remember we talked about hurt people. All of that is very well portrayed in the beginning of the movie, and just wow, it's it's something you have to be prepared, I think, to watch. I mean, I was prepared in the sense that I knew what it was about going into it. And knowing Mel Gibson, and after seeing The Passion and Braveheart and everything, I'm like, I wouldn't have expected anything less, right. But man,
so
I mean,
I have to go see this.
Yeah, I mean, it's wow.
It affected you, did it?
It did. It's one of those movies that stick with you. Quite. In fact, just watching the trailer, every single time I see the trailer. And in the trailer, they show him praying, Lord, help me get one more. Help me get one more. And in the real life story where Desmond tells his story, he says that was my prayer. I mean, this guy hadn't eaten. It was like in a period of like 24 hours or something like that. That this guy, without sleep, without eating, and without a weapon, just kept going into the thick of battle and pulling, and even Japanese. I mean, he treated the Japanese soldiers too. And his prayer was, and the way they showed in the previews, like, Lord, help me get one more. That's in a sense, in a kind of metaphor, what our prayer needs to be out there. Now we're not going into the kind of hell that Desmond Doss went through, at least not yet. But I think that's a valid prayer. Lord, help me reach one more with whatever we're doing. I mean, right now we're doing the virtual house church, and this is one of the ways that I hope that prayer is being answered. Also, Lord, help us reach one more. But man, just powerful.
Well, go into it. If you guys go out there and see it, Rob is not endorsing. He's telling you it'll move you to see the faith of one individual who believes in Yahweh, who sticks to the convictions, the narrow path, and he ends up saving, a lot of lives doing so.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got one question about the movie though. As he's going through it, and I'm going to go see it. I got to go see it now. Does he remain focused, or he's got to go through obstacles? He's going through complete chaos as he's saving these individuals off that top.
So. Oh yeah, you see him praying, you see him reading his Bible, and this is something else that there's. I posted several videos again on my YouTube. On my Facebook page, and one of them was a press conference with the producers and the actors, as sort of a panel, fielding questions from the audience and stuff. And one of the producers was saying, this was an independent feature film. It wasn't a studio film. It, just like The Passion, had to be an independent film. Why? Because the system's broken, and the system is evil, and the system is just full of problems when you want to tell a story, a genuine story, the way it is. Like Mel Gibson said, he said, real heroes don't wear spandex, And it's interesting because the actor that played Desmond Doss is the same actor that played Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield, I think is his last name.
It's Garfield.
Yeah, Andrew Garfield. So he played a superhero in spandex, but Mel Gibson was saying, the problem with the studio system is unless your hero is wearing spandex, you don't get the budget, you don't get the support, you don't get anything. And he wanted to tell a true story about a real man, not embellish the story, tell the story exactly the way it happened, about a real person, and not compromise on this person's faith, because that was the central core of who this man was and what enabled, greater love has no man except he lay down his life to save his friends. Well, that's Desmond Doss, doing what Yeshua did. Yeshua laid down his life to save his, all of mankind. Desmond did it to, save as many people as he could. And he's like, we wanted to show his faith. We wanted to show, and they were saying that the only way to do that was to have it independently funded and independently done. It was an independent feature film apart from the system. And I'm like, that's exactly why Seed has to be done the same way. Right. So we maintain complete control, that we can tell the message that we want to tell, that we can do so without having to compromise for any kind of studio executive or whatever.
Well, here's something. I don't know. Maybe you've heard something. Is Mel doing the movie Resurrection?
He is, and he talked about it in the press conference video. That actually, it was one of the interviews I think I posted on Facebook. So I posted like 4 videos on my Facebook page. So people just want to go there and check it out. Or if they just do Hacksaw Ridge on YouTube search, you'll see tons of videos and tons of interviews that he's done. And that's a frequent question that comes up. And also the other question is, what's with the beard? He's got the long beard. He's playing I don't know if he's playing Noah Webster, or he's doing a period piece where he's playing a character from I think the 1800s in a movie with Sean Penn, so that's why he's growing the beard. But he says within 3 years they're hoping to do the Resurrection movie.
I hope he does it just like he did The Passion,
I'm sure he will.
Which was very, it was graphic, man. That was very graphic. Okay, speaking of the kings, the 5 King War. Speaking of the movie we were just talking about, we see Abram going to grab Lot, one guy, his nephew, out of the hands of the kings who had just, what was it, the king of Sodom? No, they got defeated. I think they were defeated.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up some stuff right here while we're bantering a little bit. I'm going to pull up the same thing I did before, the timeline chart. In the timeline chart, let me see if I can zoom in on this. I got a section here on the Genesis 14 war. Can you see that, or am I sharing the wrong screen here? Okay, good.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, so let me see. Josephus, in the Antiquity of the Jews, he talks about these kings had laid waste all Assyria and overthrown the offspring of the giants. It was a war of giants, 4 kings against 5 kings. And this is a passage right here, Genesis 14, Genesis 14, verses 10 through 17. And in the Joshua account, we find out that Amraphel is Nimrod. That was one of his titles, Amraphel, and that he was like his right hand guy was a guy named Kedorlaomer.
Mm-hmm.
And when the 4 kings beat the 5 kings, and incidentally they chased them into the slime pits, which is after Sodom and Gomorrah is the Dead Sea. And so, as I was reading that and doing my research for my second book, Archon Invasion, and looking into any resource I can find regarding the Genesis 14 war, and Josephus gives probably the most information, I think, at least of any other source that I read apart from Genesis. I'm going, wow, I think it's my personal belief that one of the greatest archaeological finds of all time, maybe next to the Ark of the Covenant and the Ark of Noah being found one of these days, would be this find, because you have 5 armies worth of giants that fell into the tar pits before it became the Dead Sea. So between all that bitumen and salt and everything else, I'm guessing that they're probably pretty well preserved. That they may be, 5 giant armies, well preserved armies, waiting for us. And I believe if my research is correct, probably down on the southwestern end of the Dead Sea, somewhere thereabouts.
Have you been keeping your eye out to see if anybody's doing anything in that area as far as excavation or trying to find it?
Yeah, there's no excavation that I'm aware of. However, the Dead Sea's been drying up quite a bit, and so some of the area is already becoming exposed. So I called my friend Dr. Judd Burton, who's an archaeologist. And I said, hey, I showed him my research. I said, read what I've written here and tell me what you think. And he got back to me almost immediately. He says, dude, I think you're right. He said, that would be amazing. And now this was back, I wrote that book toward the end of 2013. No, excuse me, that was 2012. The end of 2012 when I published that book. And I in November of 2012, that book was in manuscript form. Still, I hadn't published it yet, and I was asked to speak in Pretoria and Cape Town, South Africa. And our host that brought us out there, when I shared that piece of information in my presentation, they pulled me aside and said, how much money do you think it would take to fund that? And I said, well, I don't know. That's outside of my expertise, but I could find out. And they said, well, find out. We might be very interested in funding that. So, unfortunately, Judd Burton had a lot of other things going on, and he was working with L.A. Marzulli and stuff, and he was down in Peru, and he had a lot of other things going on. So it's taken a long time for him to have the time to sit down and actually run those numbers up. He did send me a proposal, a prospectus on it fairly recently, like within the last few months. Of course, it's been 3 years now. So, is that fire still hot enough to poke? I don't know. But I think it would be an amazing thing if we could get the funding together, at least to do a preliminary investigation, to go out there with maybe some ground penetrating radar and, just do some searching around and see if anything, shows up in the preliminary stuff. Then it would be a matter of obviously getting permits, and, there's a whole lot of stuff you have to do with the Ministry of Antiquities and all that kind of stuff. And, but I still, it is my belief that one of the greatest archaeological finds of all time may be the remnants of what's left over from the Genesis 14 War of Giants.
Well, you're looking at, the Rephaim are involved, the Zunzamim, the Emites, the Horites, the Amalekites, the Amorites, all of them are involved in this war.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean,
in that area.
It's huge. I know some people are asking about that timeline chart. If you go to my website, BabylonRisingBooks.com, click on the store tab and scroll down to where it says digital file downloads. This is one of the charts, the 350 post-flood years of Noah's life. And then the other one is this chart right here. They're $10 each or $15 for both. So you can get them both for $15. And what you end up getting when you order that is basically these two folders right here. This folder is the 172 DPI for web and computer. So that's the one I'm looking at right now. So it's a lower resolution file that you can just look at, on your computer. And the other folder is 300 DPI for print. And they're both done in JPEG and PDF format. So you could take either one of those. A lot of times printers prefer the PDF file, but either one will work for you. If you take them to like a Staples or an Office Max kind of place, they'll print them up. And when you have them printed, they're like 3 feet long. So they're pretty good size timeline chart. Big enough for you to really spend time looking at it. So, and that's available again on BabylonRisingBooks.com.
Yeah, I think Patricia and I grabbed ours back in 2014 when you guys did the Quest for Truth panel weekend.
Yeah, we had that as a free giveaway for signing up.
Speaking of the Virtual House Church, for you who are on YouTube right now and you want to come in and you want a fellowship, or you have a question about tonight's Torah portion, or a question for Rob, just go to niuctv.com.org and click on the link to get into the chat room, and you can ask Rob. If he's open for it a little bit later, I'll even put the link in there to where you come on the show and ask him questions. Are you still up for that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And again, if people are still filing into the Virtual House Church, I've got a request out there. If somebody can look at all the books of the Old Testament here and just see how many chapters there are in each book, and they add them all up so we know how many chapters are in the entire Old Testament, and divide it by 50 and give us an answer as to how many chapters we would need to cover each week in order to finish the Old Testament this year.
I've got to apologize. There was 4 people trying to get into the Virtual House Church Facebook page today, and I was just getting off work, and I was looking at it. I'm sitting in my truck, right? I'm sitting in my truck, and I'm looking at it, and I was going to approve them. And there's a little thing where you can accept all or delete all, right? Well, like a doof, I hit the delete. So if you guys were trying to get in, please resubscribe to the Virtual House Church. I will accept you guys. I want everybody to get in there and fellowship. It's a respectful place. People do fellowship in there. They discuss a lot of things, the previous week's Torah portion or whatever's on their mind. And it's been a really good experience to get in there and discuss things with you guys. So I just want to say, if that was you, please resubscribe. We'll hit the approve button. That was my fault. I just want to say that. There you go.
And if people are interested in trying to figure that out, I'll copy the link for you, John, and put it in our Google Hangout chat window. Excellent. There you go. Or you could just go on Facebook and type in Rob Skiba's Virtual House Church, and that'll take you to our group page right here. So that's where you guys can continue the fellowship with other people throughout the weekend or the week if you want, and continue the dialogue, of course, after the broadcast.
So, okay, getting back to Abraham, the 5-king war. Okay, so we see all these Nephilim tribes. They're all involved, and we see Abraham taking 318 men.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. In my PowerPoint presentation, I like to show the picture of what's his name, Gerard Butler from the movie 300. I think that's the actor's name. Anyway, the movie 300's got a picture of him, Sparta, his big mouth open. I'm like, a lot of times we have this image in our mind of Abraham. Father Abraham is this kind of frail old guy with a long beard. He may eventually have ended up looking that way, in his old age. But before that, I think we got to kind of revisit Abram and see him more like, that dude in the movie 300, because that's what we see there, man. It's I got it right here. Abram's 300 plus 18, because there's 318 total. And among those were three giant Amorites, Mamre, Aner, and Eshcol, who were Amorite giants who helped Abram get Lot back. So, were all the Nephilim bad? Well, it would seem like these guys weren't too bad. They were at least allies with Abram.
Well, it appeared, yeah, because they helped him out. Well, he had a treaty, a covenant with two of them before this war. Before he got involved, before he heard. And I'm wondering about the messenger who came and told him about Lot. If he wasn't,
I don't know. But we see that, even when Sarah died and when Abram died, everybody came together to mourn. This guy was a powerful dude living among giants. He's right there in the middle of it, living with the Canaanites. Wow. That people respected him that much to be there to pay their respect for Sarah, and also help him with the war, and be there to respect him when he, in his death. He's a powerful dude.
Agreed. One more time, Rob. I know you just walk people through where they can find these high graphic resolution graphs that you got here. If you have the link to that, if you could put that in the Google chat, I can give it to the guys in the chat room so they can find it. They're still asking. There we go.
Yeah, there you go. It's and for everybody just listening, it's BabylonRisingBooks.com/digitalfiles.html. Digital files, all one word. .html.
All right, so we get into he gets Lot back. He gets him back, and then here's a big discussion that's been going on the last few months within the groups about Melchizedek, about the high priest, right?
Because he does a deal where he pays tithes, right, to Melchizedek,
right?
So in the Genesis account, we're given a whole bunch of names right here. In fact, let me see if I can pull this up quick enough for everybody. Where are my documents and PowerPoints? I want to say it's in this PowerPoint, Archon Invasion. I'm just looking at the names of these guys. There's some interesting names going on here, and bring me back to Melchizedek if I forget. But I just wanted to kind of bring some of this up here. Genesis 14 war.
You got a lot of cool stuff. You know that?
Well, thanks. So here's the this is from the Archon Invasion Part 1 DVD, if people are wondering where these slides came from, which is online. You can watch that on YouTube. So this is where the battle of the 9 giant kings. So like you said, you got the Raphaims are there, the Emims, the Horites, all these are giants. Amorites size of cedar trees, right? Going on there. That's epic. Kedar Laomar, he's an Elamite. This kind of breaks down his name. He servant of Lagomeru, and when I looked up Lagomeru, he was the Akkadian version. He was in the Akkadian culture, he was Ninurta, and I had already attached Ninurta to Nimrod. I traced him back to Nimrod. So that's how we find out that Kedar Laomar is literally a right-hand guy to Amraphel, who is recorded in the book of Joshua as Nimrod, king of Shinar.
You know, I was looking through the Genesis book that you put together with the extra biblical text. That's in Jasher, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nimrod? Okay.
Yeah.
Also,
the Amraphel is Nimrod. Yes, in Jasher. And title, his name means cast out from above. That's what his name means. Amraphel is Nimrod. The Amraphel means sayer of darkness, or the rebellious one. So he was a dark sayer. And Arioch means lion-like. And that made me wonder if it's like the lion-like men of Moab, the lion men of Moab in 1 Chronicles 11:22. If we're talking about the lion men of Moab, if Arioch is a animal-human hybrid. So, I mean, here are the 4 kings that beat the 5 kings. So you got some really powerful and just, crazy figures here. Nimrod, obviously, kind of leading the pack there. What Kedorlaomer is his right-hand guy. Title, his name means cast out from above, and a lion man. They're a lion-like. That's going up against, and of course, you have all these other guys that are involved. And then you have the 5 kings. The Bera, king of Sodom, Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, Shemeber, king of Zobeim, or something like that, and the king of Bela, the same as Zoar. Bera means in the evil. That's what his name means. Bersha, in wickedness. Shinab means father's tooth or change of father, so I don't know what to make of that. Shemeber, name of soaring, literally name of a wing. So did this guy have wings? I don't know. And king of Bela, which means Bela means swallowing. So we don't know the king's name. But again, some interesting names.
You know, what you said in previous shows, and when you talk about this stuff, is what are they thinking when they're looking at their kid? I'm going to name them Swallowing. Or cast out from the Most High.
Really, seriously.
That doesn't bode well for your kid.
Yeah, it seems to indicate something. Something's off with that kid. In Genesis 14:10, it says, the vale of Siddim was full of slime pits, and the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled and fell there, and they that remained fled to the mountain. And then we see in Josephus' account, Antiquity of the Jews, Book 1, Chapter 9, these kings laid waste all of Syria and overthrown the offspring of the giants. And when they were overcome against Sodom, they pitched their camp at the vale called the slime pits, for at that time there were pits in that place. But now, upon the destruction of the city of Sodom, that vale became the Lake Asphaltites, which is the Dead Sea, as it is called. So that's where we get the idea or the information that they were chased into the slime pits, which is the Dead Sea area. So, wow, I mean, crazy, wild stuff.
Eventually, Yahweh is going to direct somebody to go over and take a look.
Well, I'm hoping to be that somebody with Judd Burton and maybe Dr. Aaron Judkins, if we can, break him free of his schedule. It's all about funding and politics. I mean, there's a lot of hoops you have to jump through, as I understand it, with the antiquities department and stuff like that. And it depends on who kind of is ruling that area. Also, there may be political other issues that have to be dealt with. But it would be just a matter of first, I think I've done the initial legwork. As far as I know, I'm the only one that's ever done it. I'm not aware of any other researcher out there who's kind of put the pieces together other than Josephus, which, a lot of people seem to just ignore. But Chuck Missler, after reading Josephus's account about the Temple Mount and how what we call the Temple Mount is not the Temple Mount, and the location of the temple is not where we call the Temple Mount, as more and more research has been done on that, people like Dr. Chuck Missler has been like, I think we need to be paying. In fact, he wants to put a whole course in the Koinonia Institute specifically on Josephus, because he's like, he's an eyewitness. This guy's living at a time when stuff was, known, writing as a historian. Now, he's not perfect. There are errors in some of his stuff. Nobody's claiming that he's writing scripture. So, but he is an eyewitness historian, just as fallible as any other historian, but still a historian writing within the context of his people and the times that he lived in, recording things, that people were aware of. And so, the Hebrew people, of course, were aware of more than just the writing of Moses. They're aware of the larger context, again, that Moses was writing in. So, I'm taking from Scripture, from Joshua, from Josephus, and others, and I'm putting the pieces together, and I'm kind of sounding the alarm, saying, "Hey guys, anybody out there in the research community that has the ability to do funding and actual, excavation and stuff like that?"
What an incredible documentary that would be.
That's what I told Judd.
Wow.
I said, man, if you're able to put together the prospectus for this, and we're able to actually get a team together to go out and do it, I want to be the camera guy, and maybe the director of cameramen to actually document the whole thing.
Just like they did the patterns of evidence, you're telling the
story
and giving visuals, and then all of a sudden now you're out there.
Exactly. That's exactly what I want to do.
That would be killer.
So, circling back around to your question, Melchizedek. Okay, so you got Genesis 14 gives all the names, the giants, the big war, and all that stuff, and they capture Lot and his family and take them away. And Abram's like, no, I don't think so. Gets together a band of 318 guys, and it says he slaughtered Kedorlaomer. I mean, Kedorlaomer or Kedorlaomer. I mean, people vary on how you pronounce his name. Or I'm not even gonna try to pronounce it with the, but however you pronounce this dude's name. I mean, he's like the General Patton of Nimrod, and Abram and his boys slaughter him.
Mm-hmm.
It says right there, and the king of Sodom went out to meet him after his return from the slaughter of Kedorlaomer, and of the kings that were with him, and the valley of Shavah with the king's Dale, and Melchizedek, king of Salem, and some say that's kind of a precursor to Jerusalem.
So that's what I always thought.
Yeah, Melchizedek comes out there. Now, there's a big question on who this character is. A lot of people would say that this is a pre-incarnate Yeshua. I have a problem with that interpretation. Because if that's true, then this pre-incarnate Yeshua is ruling and reigning as a king over an entire region for an extended period of time on Earth, pre-incarnate. Joshua just comes right out and tells you that it's Shem. That essentially Melchizedek is an order. We find out the order of Melchizedek. We hear later that Yeshua is in the order of Melchizedek. That it's a king priest, and that being the case, Shem, it makes perfect sense that it would be Shem, because he's the only remaining king priest. I think Noah's dead about this time. So Noah would have been the Melchizedek before Shem,
right?
And there's a guy named Daniel that has taken a Nazirite vow that I met, and this, he's letting his hair grow long, and he's been in this vow for quite some time, so his beard and his hair is quite lengthy. This is like his thing. The Melchizedek order is like his primary area of research, and he pulled out a chart that went all the way across. Like, we were over this other person's house, went across their entire living room floor, just showing how the Melchizedek order was in Scripture, starting with Adam. And if I remember right, and I could be wrong, but it seems to me that I remember that Jacob was the last Melchizedek. And that after Jacob, the king priest got split up, with the priesthood going into Levi and the kingship going into Judah. But so Jacob would have been the last Melchizedek, which actually makes sense when you see them finally come down during the famine, when Joseph is down there, in Egypt. And Pharaoh meets him, and he pays respect to the Pharaoh, pays respect to Jacob,
right.
and asks him about his age, that, and there's this whole blessing thing taking place, and it's weird because you see Pharaoh acting really kind of subservient to Jacob.
Correct.
So, Joshua, again, I don't consider it Scripture, but I do consider it an authoritative text. It was commentary written contemporary with the Torah and much of the Old Testament.
Mm-hmm.
And, with that being the case, playing the whisper down the lane routine, I always ask, which information is most accurate? The information, the person closest to the source, or the person furthest away from the source. Well, if you ever played that game, by the time you get down the long line, the story is completely different than from what it started. So I'm going to go with the source that's closest to the original material. And, Joshua's as good as any book to point to that would be very close as a contemporary with the Torah and the book of Joshua. And it tells you point blank that Melchizedek is Shem.
Well, Rob, I'm going to put the link in the chat room and start bringing people on, because this is a hot discussion going on right now in the chat room, and just bring them on, and I want to hear what they got to say too. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. And just real quick before you guys, or while you're doing that, a lot of this stuff is on the Virtual House Church Week 3 page. If you go to Virtual House Church, click on Genesis Week 3, and I've got the Joshua portion, actually the text from the book of Joshua that goes along with the Genesis account right here. So, if you don't have the book or whatever, you can just read it right here on the website.
There's so much information on
that. Yeah,
look,
there's so much there. And also got my book and DVD that covers the same information we've been talking about. Then some other interesting thing, Paul, and the Hebrews 8 conspiracy, some things people might want to consider there. So these are all notes from previous Virtual House churches that we've done on this portion.
Excellent. Well, Samuel has just come in. What's up, Samuel? It's good to see you, man. I haven't seen you in a while.
Hey, Samuel. Looks like you muted your microphone there. If you want to join us, let us just unmute your microphone and feel free to share.
Let's see. I'm gonna put you on mute for just a second, and then Samuel, can you hear us? There we
go. No, I just had a little bit of lag on my end. That's what was going on there. Anyway, Shabbat Shalom. Always good to pop in here with you guys. And I'm just gonna kind of pull the train a little over to the left here, and I'm gonna actually jump ahead to Genesis 15, and in particular go into Galatians 3, because I've noticed something in there. I feel like tackling the whole Galatians demon tonight. I'm in an ornery mood right now.
Here we go. Which is part of the reason why I put Paul in the Hebrews 8 conspiracy as part of this portion. But yeah, let's go there, man. If you got something cool to say on that.
Well, just for starters, I'm going to say the verses in particular I'm referencing are verses 6 to 10, 17 to 19, and 23 to 25. But pretty much I'm referencing the whole chapter because for context, you really need the whole chapter for this. But what I'm noticing is that Paul in Galatians 3, and I think he does this a little bit in Romans 2. I could be wrong. I think it's Romans, the Romans portion, which is 3:1 to, it's Romans chapter 4, verses 7 to 25, where Paul actually makes the case of Torah as a trainer and actually takes the focus of Torah off of the fact that it's a law of Yahweh, which of course it is and should be obeyed, but explains more in depth that it's the role of a teacher and a trainer. And I think that's something that, honestly, more so a lot of new people coming to Torah miss, but also a lot of people outside of Torah don't understand, and it needs to be explained to them. That belief is the reason why we do works, why we live, but in particular, belief is why we want to get trained. It's like joining a team in a way in this context. You have the zeal, you have the energy, you have the desire to join a team, which is the belief to come to Yah and belief to come under Yeshua Messiah. But Torah is the training of it. Torah is the training of us to live in that righteous way, to live in a way that's pleasing to Yah. And it's just, when I read that, because I did this Wednesday, I just went through this Wednesday, and my mind was just absolutely blown when I read this. So, yeah, I just wanted to really cover that, and in particular, just the references Paul uses in, I believe it's Genesis 12 verses 3 to 7, and as well as 15:6. But in particular to Deuteronomy 27:26 to show how Abraham's faith or belief led him to obedience instead of the whole attitude that most Orthodox Jews have, unfortunately, and that a lot of Christians, mainstream Christians, have about Torah, is that a lot of people practice the law for salvation, when in reality we practice the law to better understand why we're on the team we are, and better to better participate on the team.
Yeah, good stuff, man. I want to also, for some people who are interested in this, because people will point to, hang on, let me bring up my screen share here. You know, a lot of people who will look at what we're doing right now, and they'll go right there, Galatians 3, right? And they'll start off with Galatians 3. Oh, foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you, right? That you guys are crazy doing this Shabbat thing and, you know, trying to obey God, you know, having the audacity to, as believers in Yeshua, desire to obey God. I mean, the horror of the whole thing, I understand, you know, people just go crazy on that. But I point out in my blog series, if you go to robschannel.com and in the Facebook notes link, scroll down to where it says Ephraim Awakening, click on that. That takes you to this page right here. And if you scroll down, when you get to this page, Ephraim Awakening, scroll down to where it says Understanding the Apostle Paul. I've got a couple of scriptures here, or not scriptures, blogs, I should say, Facebook notes regarding these scriptures. One is called O Foolish Galatians, and the other is Who Has Bewitched You? And in the O Foolish Galatians one, I point out that Peter, writing after Paul had been to Galatia, is writing to Galatia in 1 Peter chapter 1, right? So he's writing in 1 Peter chapter 1 to Galatia, the same people that Paul wrote to in the book of Galatians. And then that's in 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 1. We see in 2 Peter that he's writing the second epistle to the same peoples, which means 2 Peter is also written to Galatia. And in 2 Peter, it's where we read that people are twisting and distorting, ignorant and unstable people are twisting and distorting Paul's words to fall into the error of lawlessness. That's what we see in 2 Peter chapter 3, verses 15 through 17. And verse 16 says, which the ignorant and unstable twist to their own destruction, Paul's words, as they do the other scriptures. And he says, you therefore, Galatians, beloved, knowing this beforehand, take care that you are not carried away with the error of lawless people and lose your own stability. So, you know, that's one thing. And then I get into this whole other thing about what it means to be bewitched right there. So I'm glad you brought up Galatians chapter 3, because you'd think that some Christians, that's the only book in their entire Bible, because it's the only one they ever want to go to try to argue against what we're trying to do here this evening.
Oh, completely. And I mean, just furthermore, I don't want to go too into this because I know Diana's here and I want to give her time to speak too, but Paul actually further goes into this in, looks like Colossians 2, where he just talks about more so, it seems like, at least how I read it, it seems like more of an encouragement to the Colossians against hearing that kind of beat around the bush rhetoric that is frankly so commonplace around today with the churchianity scene in particular, and just how so many people want to use this really weird logic to try and justify not obeying Torah. So yeah, just bring that up to everyone's attention. And thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Samuel.
Samuel, it's good to see you, brother.
Same here, John, and Shabbat Shalom, guys.
Shabbat Shalom. Thanks so much. Great insights. He also brought up Colossians 2, and so I've got a note here under Understanding the Apostle Paul called Twisting and Distorting Colossians 2. And if you click on that one, it shows the context of what's really going on in Colossians chapter 2. And basically, if you go through it, what he's telling the people who are keeping the Sabbath, who are reading Moses, who are keeping the feast, is not to let the pagans judge them for doing what they're doing. I mean, the Christian church has so grossly twisted and manipulated and just flipped the whole meaning completely around if you actually read the context of the entire chapter.
All right, Diana, you're up. How are you doing tonight? It's good to see you. Are you there?
She's muted.
Oh, there you go.
Me?
Yes.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Diana. How are you?
I'm well. How is everybody?
Good. It's good to have you on the show. I know I saw you in the chat room, and I'm just going to lead into it. You've got some questions about the high priest that met Abram.
Yeah. Yeah. If Rob wouldn't mind revisiting the Melchizedek thing.
Sure.
Okay. Well, I just I know that Jasher, and I do subscribe to a lot of the extra biblically endorsed books. I'm a big fan of, Jasher and Enoch and Jubilees to an extent, and I know that Jasher says that that Melchizedek was Shem. I have a little bit of problem with that because in Hebrews 7, like verse 3, it says that he had no mother, no father, no genealogy, no beginning of days, no end of days. So to me, I mean, we know who Shem's parents were. He was Noah's son. To me, that says he was eternal. Yeshua gave I think he was kind of giving a clue to the Pharisees when they came at him. He kind of said, "Verily I say to you, before Abraham was, I am." So that kind of, I think, alluded to that Melchizedek visitation where he was a Christophany. He brought forth bread and wine. I thought that was a foreshadowing of the bread and wine, the bread and body of Christ. He was the priest king. Yeshua is the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. He is our high priest. And I thought that after the order of Melchizedek would mean after the order of that particular incarnation. There's also, he accepted the tithe of the spoil, 10% of the spoil from the slaughter of the innocents from Abraham. So I just thought that all of this no beginning of days, no end of days, I thought that makes him the Alpha and the Omega, or the Aleph Tau, that would make him, that would mean he was eternal. Also, the King of Salem, King of Salem or King of Peace, or his very name meaning King of Salem and King of Peace. Salem would become Jebus, which would become Jerusalem. So I figured that was probably not. I don't know if there's historical evidence of being an actual kingdom of people at the time, or if that was, being the King of Salem, and his name means the same as King of Salem. So that's kind of my thing with the Melchizedek.
Yeah, great points. I had a lot of those same exact arguments before I talked with my friend Daniel, who, I mean, everybody's got their niche, their obsession, the thing that they, just really dive into. And I that was one of my questions to that. And he was pointing out, with the ancestry part of things, like if you were a Levitical priest, you had to be able to show your lineage back to a man, Levi.
Right.
You had to be able to show that. You had to have your pedigree.
Right.
Well, the problem with tracing the Melchizedek pedigree backwards is you get to Adam, who has no mother and father. So that's where that comes in, is that that there is no, Adam's the first earthly Melchizedek, but he has no parents. See? So that solves that problem. There's no, when you get to Adam, there's nowhere to go but God. And
but that's a few generations back, and I do know that, like, you can, in biblical times, especially the Tanakh time, the times of the Torah, that saying father could mean grandfather or whatnot, but it still says he has no beginning of days or no end of days.
Correct, because it starts with God as the first king priest, making Adam in his likeness. Yeshua is the second Adam, right?
Okay.
So, because here's the problem, because all the questions you're asking, I had the same questions. So, and I'm probably not doing as good a job as Daniel at answering the questions. He answered the questions to my satisfaction, put it that way.
Okay.
But if you go the route that you're currently going, then you have Yeshua on earth as a man ruling and reigning for an extended period of time, for decades.
That's if we can document that Salem was actually a thriving kingdom of people with an earthly king at that time, or was that small part of it?
There's every bit of indication that, because I mean, these people are presenting themselves as rulers of regions, and they're coming out to meet Abram. And as a king priest, it makes sense that he would receive tithes. Priests receive tithes.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I understand the whole other side of the argument, because that was the camp that I was in for 30 plus years of my life. The position that you're coming from. So I get where you're at. But I have a hard time imagining, because Salem is a precursor to Jerusalem. Jerusalem,
yeah, that's what I was saying.
Comes from Salem, but Salem is a region. It's a land area that this guy is he's a king ruling and reigning with other kings who knew who he was. So then you got Yeshua as a incarnated man for a long period of time, ruling as a king before Mary, the virgin birth whole thing. So, you know.
Fair enough. That's true. One other thing, and then I'll let you go. About the Levitical priest line thing. One thing, this is sort of veering away from the Melchizedek thing real quick, but we know that Mary was a relative or a cousin of Elizabeth, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so and we know that Elizabeth had to be a Levite in order to be married to a Levitical priest. Only a Levitical priest, not just a Levite, but a Levitical priest. Zechariah was a Levitical priest in the order of Abiah, because we know that in the order of Abiah was the order he was serving at the time of Revolution. He had to be married to another Levite. A Levitical priest could not marry anyone of any other tribe. So we have Mary must have been half Levite and half Judah. So that would make him Yeshua through his mother from the half king line and half priest line. So he is the ultimate King of Kings and Lord of Lords, correct?
Yeah, well, certainly he is the ultimate King of Kings and Lord of Lords. I've never heard that line of thought before, but you've intrigued me. That makes sense. I've never heard it before, so I'd have to sit there and think about it for a little while. But
it just kind of occurred to me. It's like how could Mary, being full-blooded, if she was full-blooded Judah, be Elizabeth's cousin, and Elizabeth be married to a Levitical priest?
Well, that's an interesting thought. I mean, I don't know.
Wow.
That's it's brand new information to me, so I'd have to certainly sit down and chew on it and kind of vet it out a little bit. But it's an intriguing thought.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Diana. It's good to see you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, you too.
Thank you.
Okay.
So, has anybody done the math yet?
Yeah, they have. And actually, Patricia just texted it to me as you were,
okay.
She said total chapters in the Old Testament, not including the Torah, is 742 chapters. Divided by 50 weeks would equal 15 chapters per week.
Holy cow. 15 chapters. Well, I guess we're not going to get through it.
That's like 3 seasons in one.
Oh, man. 15 chapters?
15 chapters, 742 chapters divided by, it's not including the Torah.
So, well, wow.
742.
So maybe we do 5 chapters, and it'll take us 3 years to get to the.
Well, I was thinking that we could utilize the Virtual House Church Facebook page. But I'm trying to think of how we could utilize it as far as, setting it up, getting through Joshua and then the rest of the books, and then coming on and talking about it, just like we're doing the Torah portion.
15 chapters a night, a week. Well, because I really, faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. I mean, I learn. I think more of a visual and auditory type of learner. I can read and I have good retention when I read, but when I hear it, things just really jump out at me. Things that I probably missed when I just read it in my head, So I like the idea of playing the audio and actually listening to it and reading it at the same time. So why don't we do this? Why don't we just try to do 5 chapters, and we'll get as far as we can in this Torah cycle, and see what happens at the end of it.
Okay.
And keep going. Obviously at that rate, it's going to take us about a little over 2.5 cycles, probably. Close to 3 years to do it, but that's all right.
Well, I know a lot of brothers and sisters out there like me are hungry.
Yeah, I'm hungry too, man. 5 chapters a night. That's some good meat right there.
Yes.
So we've done 4 chapters so far. So why don't we do? So we're starting with Joshua 5. Why don't we do Joshua 5 through 10? How about we do that?
Okay, let's do that.
All right. So I'm going to do the screen share here, and we'll be using the audio from the ESV version. That's, I guess, the default on Bible.is. It's kind of interesting because this is a dramatized version, so you get all the drama in the voices and a little bit of sound effects and stuff to go with it. So it's kind of like we got a little movie going on here. We can play the movie in our head.
So everybody open up your scriptures or follow along, starting in Joshua 5.
All right. And the beauty of Bible.is is you just let it go and it keeps going until you stop it. So it'll just go to the next chapter as we go along. So here we go.
Joshua 5. As soon as all the kings of the Amorites, who were beyond the Jordan to the west, and all the kings of the Canaanites, who were by the sea, heard that the Lord had dried up the waters of the Jordan for the people of Israel until they had crossed over, their hearts melted, and there was no longer any spirit in them because of the people of Israel. At that time, the Lord said to Joshua,
"Make flint knives and circumcise the sons of Israel a second time."
So Joshua made flint knives and circumcised the sons of Israel at Gibeath-haaraloth. And this is the reason why Joshua circumcised them. All the males of the people who came out of Egypt, all the men of war, had died in the wilderness on the way after they had come out of Egypt. Though all the people who came out had been circumcised, yet all the people who were born on the way in the wilderness after they had come out of Egypt had not been circumcised. For the people of Israel walked 40 years in the wilderness until all the nation, the men of war who came out of Egypt, perished, because they did not obey the voice of the Lord. The Lord swore to them that he would not let them see the land that the Lord had sworn to their fathers to give to us, a land flowing with milk and honey. So it was their children whom he raised up in their place that Joshua circumcised. For they were uncircumcised because they had not been circumcised on the way. When the circumcising of the whole nation was finished, they remained in their places in the camp until they were healed. And the Lord said to Joshua,
"Today I have rolled away the reproach of Egypt from you."
And so the name of that place is called Gilgal to this day. While the people of Israel were encamped at Gilgal, they kept the Passover on the 14th day of the month in the evening on the plains of Jericho. And the day after the Passover, on that very day, they ate of the produce of the land, unleavened cakes and parched grain. And the manna ceased the day after they ate of the produce of the land. And there was no longer manna for the people of Israel, but they ate of the fruit of the land of Canaan that year. When Joshua was by Jericho, he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, a man was standing before him with his drawn sword in his hand. And Joshua went to him and said to him,
"Are you for us or for our adversaries?"
And he said,
"No, but I am the commander of the army of the Lord. Now I have come."
And Joshua fell on his face to the earth and worshipped, and said to him,
"What does my Lord say to his servant?"
And the commander of the Lord's army said to Joshua,
"Take off your sandals from your feet, for the place where you are standing is holy."
And Joshua did so. Joshua 6. Now Jericho was shut up, inside and outside, because of the people of Israel. None went out, and none came in. And the Lord said to Joshua,
"See, I have given Jericho its king and mighty men of valor. You shall march around the city, all the men of war going around the city. 7 priests shall bear 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark. On the seventh day you shall march around the city 7 times, and the priests shall blow the trumpets. And when they make a long blast with the ram's horn, when you hear the sound of the trumpet, then all the people shall shout with a great shout, and the wall of the city will fall down flat, and the people shall go up, everyone straight before him.
So Joshua, the son of Nun, called the priests and said to them,
Take up the Ark of the Covenant, and let 7 priests bear 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the Ark of the Lord.
And he said to the people,
Go forward, march around the city, and let the armed men pass on before the Ark of the Lord.
And just as Joshua had commanded the people, the 7 priests bearing the 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the Lord went forward, blowing the trumpets with the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord following them. The armed men were walking before the priests who were blowing the trumpets, and the rear guard was walking after the ark, while the trumpets blew continually. But Joshua commanded the people,
You shall not shout or make your voice heard, neither shall any word go out of your mouth until the day I tell you to shout. Then you shall shout.
So he caused the ark of the Lord to circle the city, going about it once. And they came into the camp and spent the night in the camp. Then Joshua rose early in the morning, and the priests took up the ark of the Lord. And the 7 priests, bearing the 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of the Lord, walked on, and they blew the trumpets continually. And the armed men were walking before them, and the rear guard was walking after the ark of the Lord, while the trumpets blew continually. And the second day they marched around the city once, and returned into the camp. So they did for 6 days. On the 7th day they rose early at the dawn of day, and marched around the city in the same manner 7 times. It was only on that day that they marched around the city 7 times. And at the 7th time, when the priests had blown the trumpets, Joshua said to the people,
Shout, for the Lord has given you the city, and the city and all that is within it shall be devoted to the Lord for destruction. Only Rahab the prostitute and all who are with her in her house shall live, because she hid the messengers whom we sent. But you, keep yourselves from the things devoted to destruction, lest when you have devoted them, you take any of the devoted things and make the camp of Israel a thing for destruction, and bring trouble upon it. But all silver and gold, and every vessel of bronze and iron, are holy to the Lord. They shall go into the treasury of the Lord.
So the people shouted, and the trumpets were blown. As soon as the people heard the sound of the trumpet, the people shouted a great shout, and the wall fell down flat, so that the people went up into the city, every man straight before him, and they captured the city. Then they devoted all in the city to destruction, both men and women, young and old, oxen, sheep, and donkeys, with the edge of the sword. But to the 2 men who had spied out the land, Joshua said,
Go into the prostitute's house, and bring out from there the woman and all who belong to her, as you swore to her.
So the young men who had been spies went in and brought out Rahab and her father and mother, and brothers, and all who belonged to her. And they brought all her relatives and put them outside the camp of Israel. And they burned the city with fire and everything in it. Only the silver and gold and the vessels of bronze and of iron they put into the treasury of the house of the Lord. But Rahab the prostitute and her father's household and all who belonged to her, Joshua saved alive. And she has lived in Israel to this day, because she hid the messengers whom Joshua sent to spy out Jericho. Joshua laid an oath on them at that time, saying,
Cursed before the Lord be the man who rises up and rebuilds this city Jericho. At the cost of his firstborn shall he lay its foundation, and at the cost of his youngest son shall he set up its gates.
So the Lord was with Joshua, and his fame was in all the land. Joshua 7. But the people of Israel broke faith in regard to the devoted things. For Achan, the son of Carmi, son of Zabdi, son of Zerah, of the tribe of Judah, took some of the devoted things. And the anger of the Lord burned against the people of Israel. Joshua sent men from Jericho to Ai, which is near Beth-aven, east of Bethel, and said to them,
Go up and spy out the land.
And the men went up and spied out Ai. And they returned to Joshua and said to him,
Do not have all the people go up, but let about 2,000 or 3,000 men go up and attack Ai. Do not make the whole people toil up there, for they are few.
So about 3,000 men went up there from the people, and they fled before the men of Ai, and the men of Ai killed about 36 of their men, and chased them before the gate as far as Shebarim, and struck them at the descent. And the hearts of the people melted and became as water. Then Joshua tore his clothes and fell to the earth on his face before the ark of the Lord until the evening, he and the elders of Israel. And they put dust on their heads. And Joshua said,
Alas, O Lord God, why have you brought this people over the Jordan at all, to give us into the hands of the Amorites, to destroy us? Would that we had been content to dwell beyond the Jordan? O Lord, what can I say, when Israel has turned their backs before their enemies? For the Canaanites and all the inhabitants of the land will hear of it, and will surround us and cut off our name from the earth. And what will you do for your great name?
The Lord said to Joshua,
Get up. Why have you fallen on your face? Israel has sinned. They have transgressed my covenant that I commanded them. They have taken some of the devoted things. They have stolen and lied and put them among their own belongings. Therefore, the people of Israel cannot stand before their enemies. They turn their backs before their enemies because they have become devoted for destruction. I will be with you no more unless you destroy the devoted things from among you. Get up, consecrate the people, and say, Consecrate yourselves for tomorrow, for thus says the Lord God of Israel. There are devoted things in your midst, O Israel. You cannot stand before your enemies until you take away the devoted things from among you. In the morning, therefore, you shall be brought near by your tribes. And the tribe that the Lord takes by lot shall come near by clans. And the clan that the Lord takes shall come near by households. And the household that the Lord takes shall come near man by man. And he who is taken with the devoted things shall be burned with fire, he and all that he has, because he has transgressed the covenant of the Lord, and because he has done an outrageous thing in Israel.
So Joshua rose early in the morning and brought Israel near, tribe by tribe, and the tribe of Judah was taken. And he brought near the clans of Judah, and the clan of the Zerahites was taken. And he brought near the clan of the Zerahites, man by man, and Zabdi was taken. And he brought near his household, man by man, and Achan, the son of Carmi, son of Zabdi, son of Zerah, of the tribe of Judah, was taken. Then Joshua said to Achan,
My son, give glory to the Lord God of Israel, and give praise to him. And tell me now what you have done. Do not hide it from me.
And Achan answered Joshua,
Truly I have sinned against the Lord God of Israel, and this is what I did. When I saw among the spoil a beautiful cloak from Shinar, and 200 shekels of silver, and a bar of gold weighing 50 shekels, then I coveted them and took them. And see, they are hidden in the earth inside my tent, with the silver underneath.
So Joshua sent messengers, and they ran to the tent, and behold, it was hidden in his tent with the silver underneath. And they took them out of the tent and brought them to Joshua and to all the people of Israel. And they laid them down before the Lord. And Joshua and all Israel with him took Achan the son of Zerah, and the silver and the cloak and the bar of gold, and his sons and daughters, and his oxen and donkeys and sheep, and his tent, and all that he had. And they brought them up to the valley of Achor. And Joshua said,
Why did you bring trouble on us? The Lord brings trouble on you today.
And all Israel stoned him with stones. They burned them with fire and stoned them with stones. And they raised over him a great heap of stones that remains to this day. Then the Lord turned from his burning anger. Therefore, to this day, the name of that place is called the Valley of Achor. Joshua 8. And the Lord said to Joshua,
Do not fear and do not be dismayed. Take all the fighting men with you and arise. Go up to Ai. See, I have given into your hand the king of Ai, and his people, his city, and his land. And you shall do to Ai and its king as you did to Jericho and its king. Only its spoil and its livestock you shall take as plunder for yourselves. Lay an ambush against the city behind it.
So Joshua and all the fighting men arose to go up to Ai. And Joshua chose 30,000 mighty men of valor and sent them out by night. And he commanded them,
Behold, you shall lie in ambush against the city behind it. Do not go very far from the city, but all of you remain ready. And I and all the people who are with me will approach the city. And when they come out against us just as before, we shall flee before them. And they will come out after us until we have drawn them away from the city. For they will say, they are fleeing from us just as before, so we will flee before them. Then you shall rise up from the ambush and seize the city, for the Lord your God will give it into your hand. And as soon as you have taken the city, you shall set the city on fire. You shall do according to the word of the Lord. See, I have commanded you.
So Joshua sent them out, and they went to the place of ambush and lay between Bethel and Ai, to the west of Ai. But Joshua spent that night among the people. Joshua arose early in the morning and mustered the people and went up, he and the elders of Israel, before the people to Ai. And all the fighting men who were with him went up and drew near before the city and encamped on the north side of Ai, with a ravine between them and Ai. He took about 5,000 men and set them in ambush between Bethel and Ai, to the west of the city. So they stationed the forces, the main encampment that was north of the city, and its rear guard west of the city. But Joshua spent that night in the valley. And as soon as the king of Ai saw this, he and all his people, the men of the city, hurried and went out early to the appointed place toward the Arabah to meet Israel in battle. But he did not know that there was an ambush against him behind the city. And Joshua and all Israel pretended to be beaten before them and fled in the direction of the wilderness. So all the people who were in the city were called together to pursue them. And as they pursued Joshua, they were drawn away from the city. Not a man was left in Ai or Bethel who did not go out after Israel. They left the city open and pursued Israel. Then the Lord said to Joshua,
Stretch out the javelin that is in your hand toward Ai, for I will give it into your hand.
And Joshua stretched out the javelin that was in his hand toward the city. And the men in the ambush rose quickly out of their place, and as soon as he had stretched out his hand, they ran and entered the city and captured it. And they hurried to set the city on fire. So when the men of Ai looked back, behold, the smoke of the city went up to heaven, and they had no power to flee this way or that, for the people who fled to the wilderness turned back against the pursuers. And when Joshua and all Israel saw that the ambush had captured the city, and that the smoke of the city went up, then they turned back and struck down the men of Ai. And the others came out from the city against them, so they were in the midst of Israel, some on this side and some on that side. And Israel struck them down until there was left none that survived or escaped. But the king of Ai they took alive, and brought him near to Joshua. When Israel had finished killing all the inhabitants of Ai in the open wilderness where they pursued them, and all of them to the very last had fallen by the edge of the sword, all Israel returned to Ai and struck it down with the edge of the sword. And all who fell that day, both men and women, were 12,000, all the people of Ai. But Joshua did not draw back his hand with which he stretched out the javelin until he had devoted all the inhabitants of Ai to destruction. Only the livestock and the spoil of that city Israel took as their plunder, according to the word of the Lord that he commanded Joshua. So Joshua burned Ai and made it forever a heap of ruins as it is to this day. And he hanged the king of Ai on a tree until evening. And at sunset Joshua commanded, and they took his body down from the tree and threw it at the entrance of the gate of the city, and raised over it a great heap of stones which stands there to this day. At that time Joshua built an altar to the Lord, the God of Israel, on Mount Ebal, just as Moses, the servant of the Lord, had commanded the people of Israel, as it is written in the book of the law of Moses, an altar of uncut stones, upon which no man has wielded an iron tool. And they offered on it burnt offerings to the Lord, and sacrificed peace offerings. And there, in the presence of the people of Israel, he wrote on the stones a copy of the law of Moses, which he had written. And all Israel, sojourner as well as native-born, with their elders and officers and their judges, stood on opposite sides of the ark before the Levitical priests, who carried the ark of the covenant of the Lord, half of them in front of Mount Gerizim, and half of them in front of Mount Ebal, just as Moses, the servant of the Lord, had commanded it the first, to bless the people of Israel. And afterward he read all the words of the law, the blessing and the curse, according to all that is written in the book of the law. There was not a word of all that Moses commanded that Joshua did not read before all the assembly of Israel, and the women and the little ones and the sojourners who lived among them. Joshua 9. As soon as all the kings who were beyond the Jordan in the hill country, and in the lowland, all along the coast of the great sea toward Lebanon, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites heard of this, they gathered together as one to fight against Joshua and Israel. But when the inhabitants of Gibeon heard what Joshua had done to Jericho and to Ai, they, on their part, acted with cunning, and went and made ready provisions, and took worn-out sacks for their donkeys, and wineskins, worn out and torn and mended, with worn-out patched sandals on their feet, and worn-out clothes. And all their provisions were dry and crumbly. And they went to Joshua in the camp at Gilgal, and said to him and to the men of Israel,
We have come from a distant country, so now make a covenant with us.
But the men of Israel said to the Hivites,
Perhaps you live among us. Then how can we make a covenant with you?
They said to Joshua,
We are your servants.
And Joshua said to them,
Who are you? Where do you come from?
They said to him,
From a very distant country your servants have come, because of the name of the Lord your God. For we have heard a report of him, and all that he did in Egypt, and all that he did to the 2 kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan, to Sihon the king of Heshbon, and to Og king of Bashan who lived in Ashtaroth. So our elders and all the inhabitants of our country said to us, Take provisions in your hand for the journey, and go to meet them, and say to them, We are your servants. Come now, make a covenant with us. Here is our bread. It was still warm when we took it from our houses as our food for the journey on the day we set out to come to you. But now, behold, it is dry and crumbly. These wineskins were new when we filled them, and behold, they have burst. And these garments and sandals of ours are worn out from the very long journey.
So the men took some of their provisions, but did not ask counsel from the Lord. And Joshua made peace with them, and made a covenant with them to let them live. And the leaders of the congregation swore to them. At the end of 3 days, after they had made a covenant with them, they heard that they were their neighbors, and that they lived among them. And the people of Israel set out and reached their cities on the 3rd day. Now their cities were Gibeon, Kephirah, Beeroth, and Kiriath Jearim. But the people of Israel did not attack them, because the leaders of the congregation had sworn to them by the Lord, the God of Israel. Then all the congregation murmured against the leaders, but all the leaders said to all the congregation,
We have sworn to them by the Lord, the God of Israel, and now we may not touch them. This we will do to them. Let them live, lest wrath be upon us because of the oath that we swore to them.
And the leaders said to them,
Let them live.
So they became cutters of wood and drawers of water for all the congregation, just as the leaders had said of them. Joshua summoned them, and he said to them,
Why did you deceive us, saying, We are very far from you, when you dwell among us? Now therefore you are cursed, and some of you shall never be anything but servants, cutters of wood, and drawers of water for the house of my God.
They answered Joshua,
Because it was told to your servants for a certainty that the Lord your God had commanded his servant Moses to give you all the land and to destroy all the inhabitants of the land from before you. So we feared greatly for our lives because of you and did this thing. And now, behold, we are in your hand. Whatever seems good and right in your sight to do to us, do it.
So he did this to them, and delivered them out of the hand of the people of Israel, and they did not kill them. But Joshua made them that day cutters of wood and drawers of water for the congregation and for the altar of the Lord, to this day in the place that he should choose.
All right, that's 5 chapters, and so we'll pick up Joshua 10 next week. Wow.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, here we go. Okay, so it starts off with everybody in the entire region heard about what Yahweh did by drying up the water so they could pass over, which is pretty huge when you look at the expand of land that's over there and where they were settled at. Then he goes into, their hearts melted. These are Nephilim, giant warriors, unafraid of anything, and their hearts are melting at what Yahweh is doing with Joshua. That's crazy. Because I'm sitting there visualizing it. I'm listening to these guys talk and go through the story. I'm going, okay, they're reading it well, but I'm just visualizing these creatures, just massive, dangerous individuals, and their hearts are melting because of what Yahweh is doing. That's incredible.
Well, you'll notice that, they get into their, first of all, I'm like, wow, they're getting circumcised again. When I first read it, I'm like, wait a minute, you're getting a second circumcision? I didn't, of course, the narrative then goes on to describe, why there's this whole circumcision thing, because a lot of them hadn't been circumcised yet. So at first I'm freaking out going, what do you mean you're going to do it again? But still, I mean, these are adults in this case, and it says, okay, you're going to go make yourself some flint knives and go on back. You're going to have to wait a little while, for everybody to get healed up. And then after everybody's healed, they have Passover. And, I find that interesting too, because, we've talked about this before, but the documentary, The Way.
I was going to bring that up.
Yeah. The Luke, the guy who was the producer of it, hadn't been circumcised yet. And he was contemplating becoming circumcised, and one of the reasons is because he wanted to participate in the feasts of Yahuwah. And there's actually a command in Scripture that says you cannot partake of Passover if you are not circumcised. And so, for him, he wanted to, is this Ephraim awakening, as I call it? Is this thing for real? What's going on here? This is a pretty big decision. As I understand it, he did get circumcised and was able to partake legitimately of his first Passover. And so you see these guys doing that. They get circumcised, and then they have Passover. So we see that this is really on an anniversary of them, because they left Egypt with Passover, right? The death angel passing over and the whole deal. And then, after that, they're leaving Egypt. So, they're celebrating, I guess, presumably 41 years or so to the day as they're going into the land here and doing their thing. And then this angel meets them in the way, and he says that he's the commander of the heavenly hosts. And I just made a note for myself, is that Michael, the archangel? I can't prove that, but my understanding is that Michael is the captain of the heavenly hosts, other than Yeshua, Yeshua being the commander-in-chief of all of them, I suppose.
I've got a question about the Passover before we get into the Michael issue.
Yeah.
Now that we're observing and memorializing Passover, because we can't do it in the land, there's no temple. I mean, as far as those rules go, there's another one that states that you can't have an unbeliever at your table. I mean, I've seen all these arguments. Every Passover, I see these arguments, right? So how stringent does one have to be at Passover? I mean, does everybody at the table have to be circumcised now? Or, I mean, in the millennial reign, that's going to be a different story.
Well, maybe this is TMI, but my parents took care of that for me before I was could know anything. So I don't, that's not an issue for me. But I will say this: if that was not the case, my understanding of Scripture is you can't partake of Passover if you're not circumcised. So kind of like Luke, if I was in that situation where I was not circumcised, I would do it. Frankly, I would do it because I would want to, be able to partake of Passover as somebody that could partake of Passover being circumcised. Now, we are not in Jerusalem. We are still in the diaspora. So there's an argument to be made that we cannot keep any of the feasts properly because we're not in the land.
Right.
Now, these guys are just entering the land, so they have not yet been ushered into the place that God would show them, Jerusalem. They're making their way through various conquests. And interestingly enough, we see the fulfillment of where they're told to go to Mount Ebal and Gerizim, which is Shechem. to go and to split the tribes, half on Ebal and half on Gerizim, and do, this is the passage where they fulfill it.
Mm-hmm.
So they're still on their way. So, it's a preparation. But we see even in the preparation to going to the place that God would show them that they got circumcised first. So,
that makes sense. Okay, so Karen in the chat room, she's re-bringing up what you were going into Michael about. Michael cannot be the captain of the Lord's host because Joshua worshipped and was not corrected about this.
Yeah, fair enough. The ultimate commander in chief is Yeshua. So, and you'll see whenever it's an angel, whenever somebody bows down, the angel corrects them. Good point. The angel says, but the angel of the Lord, Yeshua, has no need of correcting anybody for bowing down before them. So, fair enough.
All right. Well, we also see that, everybody heard, Yahweh made Joshua's name well known. Everybody knew who he was after all of this. Then we see Achan, am I saying his name right? And we see, he takes something that he wasn't supposed to in that skirmish.
Garments of Shinar. That was that kind of jumped out at me. I'm going, whoa!
What is that?
I don't know. I don't know.
Yahweh. It really upset him. To the point where he got stoned to death.
Yeah, because these were things devoted. It says devoted items. What were they devoted for? They're devoted for destruction. These are things that are devoted for destruction. So if you bring things into your house that's devoted for destruction, you've just devoted yourself for destruction.
Can we say that we're coming up on the Beast Feast days where we're having ornaments and images in people's homes that are not of Scripture, that are not scriptural? Is that the same or almost the same? Did we make that argument?
I think in times past we did things in ignorance, didn't know any better. I think that those days are over. I don't think anybody can make those claims anymore. Even people who are still celebrating Xmas and Ishtar Day, now they know better. They're just doing it because they like it, they love it, they see nothing, God knows my heart, blah, blah, blah. But they have heard all the arguments. If they're on social media, they know better. They've you can't be on Facebook and not see the videos against Christmas and Easter or on YouTube these days. So if they're watching this show, they know better. So at that point, I don't think you can claim ignorance anymore. You're doing so willfully. And I think that's where you run into trouble. And, we've been going back and forth, as I've said before, since my uncle died, to Granbury, which, for us is an hour and a half drive, both ways, 3 hours on the road each day and spending, anywhere from 5 to 8 hours or more sometimes cleaning stuff out. And we've had four driveway sized dumpsters. Today we filled up the fourth one, and it got here like literally. I just got my seat right before the show for doing that. But in today's trip, we were finishing up things in the garage and going through the attic of my uncle's estate. And in the attic, we found all the Christmas stuff, all the Santa Claus stuff, all the Christmas tree stuff, all the Christmas lights and all that stuff. And, the temptation with a lot of the stuff that we've been finding, a lot of stuff is just throw it away. It's garbage. But other things that are pretty decent, we say, well, we'll sell it at a tag sale or something. Maybe we can help the family out some more with that. And that's what we've been doing with a lot of things is trying to help Sheila's family, with her sisters and nephew and different people, that have legitimate needs. We're like, some of it we gave to Goodwill and stuff, and other stuff we're putting aside to have a tag sale to help benefit Sheila's family. So some of that stuff would be premium sellable items, especially here we are, a month out from Christmas, right? No, that all went in the dumpster because we know better. We know what it means. We know what it represents. So if I'm not going to have it in my house, why on earth would I endorse selling it or giving it to somebody else to put it in their house?
You would cause your brother to sin.
In that regard, yeah. So those of us who have given up Christmas and all that stuff, who have had those things. And, for some of us, like Kevin and Amanda, they had a lot of it. That was their, that was their big deal, right? That Kevin and Amanda are the hosts that we meet on Shabbat. We meet in their home. And when Amanda finally came off of that page and embraced Torah and got rid of, Xmas and Ishtar Day as a practice in their home, he came off that page first and prayed for her, and then Yahuwah showed her, you shouldn't be doing that stuff. All her stuff went in the dumpster too, and they had some nice stuff, and a lot of people that I know have, because for many of us that was a big deal. Those holidays were a big deal. And we had the, nice Christmas trees, nice ornaments, nice blah, 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 all that stuff. No, we're not going to give it to our brother. We're not going to give it to our sister. We're not going to sell it. We're going to destroy it. We're going to throw it away. So, yeah, I think now a case can be made that those are items of Shinar, and we can't claim ignorance anymore. So for us, to him that knows to do right and doesn't, it's sin.
At the beginning of chapter 7 in Joshua, it says, "But the children of Israel committed trespass regarding that which is under ban." Okay, that's how it starts out. So is that almost like corporal punishment for one person's?
Well, yeah,
sin?
Vince Vaughn plays a drill sergeant in the movie Hacksaw Ridge, and I have very fond memories of boot camp. Now, boot camp was a very difficult 8 weeks of my life. I was a week out of high school when I went into the Army. I joined in December of '86, graduated high school in the summer of '87, and was in boot camp a week later. Anybody who's been through, especially Army and Marines boot camp, I don't want to knock the Navy or the Air Force, but I've seen some of the things that they had to go through by comparison to what the Army and the Marines go through. I think boot camp is difficult for all the services, but I think it's particularly difficult in the Army and probably the hardest in the Marines. One guy messes up, everybody pays for it. I can remember a case where this guy, Private Helmanack, was his name. Helmanack and this other guy, I can't remember the other guy's name, had a kind of a knack in the beginning for getting in trouble, for doing things that they shouldn't do. One of them, I think it was Helmanack, he was put on a diet because he couldn't pass the PT test, and so he got caught sneaking a bagel or a donut, I think, at breakfast or whatever. Got in trouble for it. Well, we all got in trouble for it. This other guy, oh gosh, I can't think of his name now, but he left his wall locker unsecured, and the drill sergeants came in and found the wall locker unsecure, and we had spent the whole day on a long road march, so we were beat down. I mean, you're carrying a lot of weight on your rucksack and all that stuff, and your weapon, and you're marching through the woods and stuff, and this was, oh gosh, July and August in Fort McClellan, Alabama, so it was hot, man. And, that's a long, rough day. You come back to the barracks, you just want to crash on your bunk, right? Well, we came back and it looked like a tornado went through our barracks. Like people's bunks were on the roof of the building, literally on the roof of the building. And the entire interior of the barracks was completely trashed. And the drill sergeants just went psycho on us because one guy left his wall locker unsecure. So, Sheila makes fun of me now because I'm like a lockophobe, man. Like I'm crazy about locks. And this is because of boot camp now. I'm 47 years old, and I went through when I was 18, right? So, all these years, when I lock a door, I'll check it like 3 times, and I'll say in my head, lock, check, lock, doors lock. I literally, to this day, still do that, man. The doors lock, and then I'll walk away because sometimes I'll lock a door and I'll walk away, and I'm like, shoot, did I lock the door? I go back. So to prevent myself from having to go back and do that, I do this little ritual. I still do that to this day because of the trauma of experiencing what happened to us at boot camp because one guy screwed up. And here's the situation here. I mean, they go to battle because one guy screwed up, and what was it, 36 guys or something like that? I forgot how many it says in the text, but they lost some men because Yahuwah wasn't there fighting with them. and Yahuwah had withdrawn his support because of the sin of Achan. So I think there's a good principle there for us that we have to be responsible, because a lot of times our actions don't just impact our own lives. They can have an impact on our family. They can have an impact on, a whole group of people, a whole culture, in this case, a nation.
That would definitely get everyone's attention, because everyone, the heap of stones that they stoned this Achan character that did this, which it's interesting what he took, but Yahweh said, get rid of it. Did you notice he said, because now they're all in trouble because all of Israel sinned because of one guy. Mm-hmm. He's teaching them a lesson here, right? But at the same time, he is teaching them a serious lesson. This is serious, guys. And today, for us, in today's society, we don't want the bunks on top of the roof. That's right. We don't want that happening, right? So get rid of the stuff that Yahweh doesn't want in your life, whatever that might be.
Just prior to the selection of Donald Trump, I was I had to get the registration on my car renewed, and they had the voter booth thing all set up right there, right in the next room over from where I had to do my license thing. And I was tempted to go in there just because I didn't want Hitlery. I think Trump is a billion times better than Hitlery, but like I said earlier, I'm still suspicious even of him. But I was tempted, even though I've said, your votes don't matter. I know your votes don't matter. Your votes are completely meaningless. The Electoral College alone proves that. Put all conspiracy theories aside. Didn't she win the popular vote, right? But the Electoral College, picked Trump. So, right there alone, but still, I was tempted to go in there. But instead, I got in the line for the registration, and it was a pretty long line, at the DMV. And I just started praying. 2 Chronicles 7:14. And I just started. I actually started praying. I said, Father, I think of Abram, and he's praying for Sodom and Gomorrah. And he said, would you destroy the city? And he does this, countdown of, for so many men. No, I won't. No, I won't. No, I won't. Will the city be destroyed for the sake of so many righteous? And I started to have a vision in my head of the Ephraim Awakening map there that I call it, on the front page of Virtual House Church. And all those blue dots. And all those blue dots represent people who have a desire. None of us are perfect, but all of us are trying to come out of Babylon, so to speak, and get rid of the things that are not right and to walk in the Father's ways. And I laid out a petition. I'm still in line, and I said, Father, just like Abraham prayed, I said, would you spare the nation for the sake of this many righteous? Now, we're not righteous in our own actions. I understand that. I get that. But we are righteous by the blood of Yeshua. And so if we're covered in the blood of Yeshua, then we are righteous through his righteousness. And if we're seeking to do right and obey by obeying the Father's commandments, so much the more. That makes us holy in the sense of making us set apart. And so that was my prayer. I was like, Father, I can't go over there. I don't believe in the lesser of two evils and endorsing, and I don't believe in that whole system. I don't believe you can fix Babylon with Babylon. People have heard me preach that like crazy. I can't do it. But Father, would you spare this nation for the sake of those blue dots? Thinking about the people who are trying to turn back to the Father's ways. And, what was Trump the answer to that prayer? Apparently, we know that Yahuwah is the one that places people into office. Your votes didn't do that. And if he is the one that is the best of the candidates to spare us what we deserve, look at Jonah and Nineveh. It didn't get more wicked than Nineveh, perhaps other than Sodom and Gomorrah, but he said he had one message: repent or this place is toast. And from the king down, they came out in sackcloth and ashes, and God spared the city, and Jonah had a little pity party and threw a little fit about it because he's like, I knew you were going to do that. I knew you were God of mercy. I want that city destroyed because they deserve it. And I knew you were going to do that, maybe people need to go read Jonah, because it shows the Father's heart. And so, I'm choosing to believe that we've been given a window of time and of mercy, but it's not over yet. I'm not saying great, Trump's in, we're good to go for the next 4 years. Because anything can happen between now and Inauguration Day, and even during the 4 years. I think we need to keep praying that way. I need that prayer. I think that prayer needs to continue. Because who knows how much longer his mercy is going to be extended to this nation, who has a lot of sin to answer for.
I think you said it best, Rob, that our job, and you had this conversation on Wednesday night on your show, what we're to be doing is to be spreading the gospel, being that light for our brothers and sisters who don't know Yeshua. That's the most important key, in our walk. We've got like 3 minutes left, Chad. So if you got something to say, go for it.
Is this Chad from the old days, Chad? I think it is. His microphone is muted there.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. I was just wanted to talk about the beginning of that. How you doing, Rob? Good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you in person. I've always heard you back in the old days, but nice to finally see you in person.
Yeah, I don't want to take up too much time here, so I'll get right to it. Back to when they were circumcised, they went down to Gilgal, and I did this research in my book. It was just really fascinating. Gilgal actually means it's GL in Hebrew, and it means circle, circle. So you can actually have, to circumcise them a second time. So there's significance there in that it has circle, circle. But later on, we'll find out that this is the place where Saul had gone down to and built a monument to his own pride when he was commanded to go down and slaughter the Philistines, whom they had met when coming out of Egypt, right? And he had built a monument to his pride there. So it was that same place where they had circumcised and dedicated Israel to the Lord that he actually set up the monument to his own pride. He didn't kill the king like he was commanded, and he justified it in himself. Now, what's interesting about that, later on you'll see, and it doesn't explain this in the scriptures, that it said when David was anointed king, he first went down to Gilgal and then back up. I think it can be inferred there that he actually took down that monument or destroyed it before he actually took his kingship. So I just wanted to throw that in there, that Gilgal is a very significant place. I mean, you see a lot of things transpiring there, but I just wanted to bring that up as part of the conversation, as the thought line here is what happens later on, to keep that in mind as we read forward in the scriptures, all the things that significantly happen there. So
fantastic. It's been a long time, bro. One of the things I've always loved about whenever you joined us, you always had some good nuggets to, some diamonds in the rough sometimes to pull out and show us. And another good one, bro. And I hope to see you back again, man. And
sure.
You sent me your book, I think, a while back, so I need to get you on my radio show and talk about it.
Well, I'll send you a hard copy. The PDF, as I know, is harder to read, and a lot of people are in front of their computers. They don't want to be there when they're trying to absorb something. So I'll send you the hard copy, and we'll get on as soon as you can, Rob. I'm here, buddy.
All right. Well, fantastic. Well, for our audience sake, what's the name of your book, and how can they get it?
It's called The World in the Bondage of Egypt, Under the Triumphal Arch of Titus. They can get it on Amazon. You can go to my website, thearchesofegypt.com. You can get it there directly from me. But real quick about the book, it talks about the destruction of 70 AD. It talks a lot about the two kingdoms, the divorce, and there's some things in there that nobody has heard in this circle of things that we talk about. I know are going to really bring some understanding to some things, connect Babylon, but it's I found it through a circumspect way through Egypt. I will prove through the book how we can show that the world has literally come under the bondage of Egypt, which makes that second Exodus a literal thing. But it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, very exciting. While you were talking, I just punched it up. This is your website right here. thearchesofegypt.com. So if people are
That's
interested,
right.
they can check it out. Thearchesofegypt.com. Want to give a little plug for my friend here. Check his website out. Check his stuff out. Always got some good stuff. And he's in quite a number of our Virtual House Church archives. So if you go back and listen to some of the older shows that we did, and you hear me talking to, there's another guy named Chad, who's a friend of ours that goes to our regular house church. And so this is the other Chad right here. So great to finally meet you in person, bro, and look forward to talking some more.
Well, I think Chad was trying to get on earlier, but he was on his tablet. Was that you, Chad?
Yeah, that was me. It was giving me fits. Not enough memory there.
Okay. Well,
cool.
Excellent. Next week, just pop on. Hopefully you'll get on your computer and you can come on and join the discussion.
Yeah, I would love to. Love to.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you, man.
All right. Thanks, Chad. And everybody, thank you guys so much for joining us. I know we didn't get to a whole lot of questions, but we had some really good dialogue and had some good interaction with people calling in. And I definitely want to encourage that. That's what if you listen to some of the other shows when I was on the radio, I was practically begging people, please call me. So I have to sit here and, ramble on myself. And thankfully Chad was one of the go-to people, and Sherry was another. There's a few people that were regulars that called in, but we want to hear from you. So don't be shy. If you're afraid to put your face on the camera, you can mute your camera or whatever. But we want to hear from you. So please feel free to contact John and say, hey, I want to share something in the future broadcasts.
Always good to hear from brothers and sisters out there following the narrow path. If you're watching on YouTube and you want to join us during the Virtual House Church on Friday nights, all you got to do is go to nowuctv.org, click on the link in the Rumble chat, and it brings you right in. And that's where we post a link to come onto the show so you can ask questions or give a comment or ask Rob whatever you want to ask him. I think he's used to sitting on a hot seat as far as questions go. Again, there's a Virtual House Church Facebook page. Please go there and continue the discussion through the week. And it's growing by leaps and bounds. I'm really happy to see in a lot of the conversations, there's no hate mongering over there. It's really cordial. There's some disagreement, but there's no bashing in that place. It's well moderated, and you'll have a good time while you're there, and you can ask questions. People chime in on their nuggets, like you say, and it's a good place to go to fellowship.
Yeah, and I just went there just now and looked and saw we have 1,028 people there. That's awesome, man. We broke 1,000, I guess, this week.
Yeah,
that's wonderful.
This morning we broke 1,000.
Fantastic. And so, and I guess you accidentally deleted a few people who tried to get in there. So, if you were one of those that wanted to get in but for whatever reason didn't, feel free to send us a request, and we'll definitely get you in there.
And I'm approving everyone. There's only a short few rules. No bashing people over the head. No foul language. And other than that, sky's the limit.
Yeah.
And what you want to discuss.
Get in there and chat it up, ask questions and discuss stuff. I unfortunately don't have as much time as I used to, so I can't spend as much time responding to things in there, but hey, there's plenty with 1,028 people, there's plenty of people in there to communicate, and probably a whole lot of them are a lot smarter than me anyway. So get in there and have some good dialogue with people, and we certainly invite you to join us.
And if there is something that, that needs Rob's attention, I'll certainly get him over there to take a look at it. But at the same time, it's for you guys. It's for you guys to discuss the scriptures, what's going on in your lives, how Yahweh is moving in your lives. Give your testimonies. We want to hear from you. With that, Rob, you want to, anything else? I kind of want to take them one more time to the Virtual House Church website.
Okay.
Where they can find the materials that we're talking about, because it's important to follow along and where they can read this stuff and where they can get it.
Absolutely. Well, it's virtualhousechurch.com. If you just go to the main website, still got to change the logo there. And scroll down for this week's portion, Genesis week number 3. This is the rest of the portions. So there's a portion from Isaiah there, and you got a bunch of New Testament ones as well. And you can watch the broadcast. This is the YouTube version of the audio that we did in 2013. And there's a whole lot of notes and stuff that you can look at, including the Joshua portion here, books and stuff you can check out from previous studies that we did. As you can tell, there's quite a lot to dive into. including some videos by 119. The Lost Sheep, two great videos here. The Lost Sheep, Nailed to the Cross, awesome videos. And also audio from the 2012 broadcast. You can listen to that one and some more timeline charts and stuff that I did back then. So lots of stuff for people to check out. And for a lot of people who are new to all of this, you might want to check out the Coming Out of Babylon page first. That's a page specifically designed for people that this is brand new to you. You don't know what's going on, and you want to try to just get your feet wet before you're jumping in. And basically, this page just has a whole bunch of videos for you to watch to help you kind of get started into understanding what we're all about here. Your microphone is muted.
Thank you. And with that said, let's just say a real short prayer, and then we're going to end the show. So everybody get on with their Shabbats. Father, we ask that tomorrow and tonight, as we go through the Torah portions, that you are glorified, that we learn more about you, and that we enrich our relationships with you closer to Yeshua Messiah. Father, we thank you so much for tonight. We thank you for Rob coming on, for Chad coming on, Samuel and Diana, for adding to the conversation, and everybody who's asking questions tonight. Father, we ask that they grow closer to you through Yeshua, and that is the ultimate. We say amen, and thank you, Father.
Amen. And Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, bro. Thank you.
Bless you and keep you. Yahuwah, make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yahuwah, lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Yahuwah, make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yahuwah, lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace.
Yahuwah te bendiga y te guarde. Yahuwah haga resplandecer su rostro en ti y tenga de ti compasión. Yahuwah rostro sobre